In another episode of friction between the antagonistic powers of the Cold War 2.0, China stated on Thursday, 23, that it had driven away an American destroyer from waters it considers territorial. The incident occurred near the Paracel Islands in the South China Sea, one of the most tense points between the communist dictatorship and its neighbors in the Western Pacific. Beijing considers 85% of the region its own and militarized several islets, reefs, and atolls since 2014 to assert such control. The USS Milius is one of the 70 Arleigh Burke-class destroyers, the powerhouse of the American Navy, capable of firing cruise and anti-aircraft defense missiles. China operates 42 similar vessels, with varying degrees of sophistication. Meanwhile, tensions between the US and China have been escalating over various issues, including trade, human rights, and Taiwan. The incident with the USS Milius is just the latest example of this ongoing friction. The Paracel Islands have long been a source of tension between China and its neighbors in the region, including Vietnam and Taiwan. China has been accused of militarizing the islands and using its military power to assert its territorial claims in the South China Sea. The U.S., for its part, has been conducting regular freedom of navigation operations in the region to challenge China's claims and assert its right to navigate through international waters. The recent visit by Xi Jinping to Russia, as well as the joint naval exercise with Russia and Iran in the Gulf of Oman, have raised concerns about a potential alliance between China, Russia, and Iran against the US and its allies. Overall, the situation in the Asia-Pacific region remains highly volatile, with tensions between major powers on the rise and the risk of conflict continuing to grow. This incident is part of a series of clashes between global powers in their bordering areas. At the beginning of the year, there was the UFO crisis, when the US shot down a Chinese balloon over their territory, accusing Beijing of espionage. Later, a Russian fighter jet shot down an American drone during what seemed to be an aggressive approach in the Black Sea near Ukraine, and another Moscow aircraft intercepted B-52 nuclear-capable bombers heading into Russian airspace. Also this week, the Kremlin responded to the visit of arrival of Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida, to Kiev by flying its bombers close to Japan. All of this is taking place in the context of cumulative tensions not only in Europe but also in Asia. Since the former U.S. Speaker of the House visited Taiwan, an island considered rebellious by Beijing, Chinese military activity around the area has escalated. Washington has been reinforcing its political presence with the Quad Alliance, with Australia, India, and Japan, and has signed a new military pact in the Indo-Pacific with Australia and the UK. On Sunday, China, Russia, and Iran completed their first joint naval exercise in the Gulf of Oman. Present were a Beijing destroyer, a Tehran frigate, and a Moscow Admiral Gorchkov frigate, the first equipped with hypersonic missiles in the world. The South China Sea has always been one of the most critical points for Beijing as almost all of its trade passes through maritime routes in the region. About 80% of the hydrocarbons it consumes also come from the area. The region is in the so-called First Island Chain, the strategic backyard for the defense of Chinese territory. 6 countries are vying for the region, which is rich not only in maritime routes but also in gas, oil, and fish. The Paracel Islands stand out there. They are a group of 130 islands and reefs disputed by various powers since the 15th century. Their name comes from a Spanish corruption of the word pleasure, used by the Portuguese in their visits to the area. They are strategically located within the territorial waters of both China and Vietnam, which is disputing control over them. Taiwan also does so, claiming historical ties. But it was Beijing that militarized the region and installed an administrative outpost, becoming the de facto owner of the islands. The U.S. does not recognize this, claiming the so-called freedom of navigation. In 2016, a UN tribunal judged a specific case of a group of sandbanks and rocks near Paracel, Scarborough. There, the Philippines complained about Chinese presence and won the case, but Beijing said the court did not have valid jurisdiction for the process.